Good afternoon. This is the upper part of Palm Canyon. As you can see, it's all in the afternoon shade. So I'm going to stop here and talk about some anime.
Key, the metal idol.
Key, the Metal Idol is a 1994 sci-fi fantasy anime OVA series, a variation on the Pinocchio fairy tale. It's released in North America by Viz. The story is set in contemporary Japan. Tokiko Mima, known simply by the nickname Key, appears to be a high school girl in an ordinary high school in a small rural valley of Japan, but it's widely known that, as Key herself will tell you, she's a robot, a creation of her grandfather, Dr. Mima, a retired robotics expert. When Dr. Mima dies, he leaves Key a simple recorded final message. If she can make 30,000 friends, Key can become human. Key doesn't question her creator's words, but decides that there aren't anywhere near that many people in her small rural valley, so she strikes out for the big city, where there are more people who might become her friend. In Tokyo, Key has a chance reunion with Perky Sakura, an old friend from the valley. Sakura is working 3 jobs, including pizza delivery and a video store clerk. She knows how to cope with the big city, and she's so kind that she takes Key in as her oddball roommate.
You're here. Oh, Key, it's been so long. What have you been doing with yourself? So, let's catch up. I guess you're still a robot, aren't you?
Sakura, look.
Huh?
And so, Key's adventure begins. Following that exciting reunion, Sakura ponders Key's desire for 30,000 friends. Eventually, they'll decide that the shortest path to that many friends is to become a rock star. It gets a little complicated from here. Unfortunately, their efforts are going to be hampered by a ruthless industrial magnate, Ajo, and his sinister henchman, Sergei, and their robotic toys, the PPORs. Ajo wants Dr. Mima's robotic secrets, which he's sure are hidden inside Key somewhere. Strangely, the nefarious Ajo is also the manager of Japan's current hottest idol star, Miho, who's got a sort of Sharon Apple vibe going on backstage. On Key's side is Sakura's friend, Takaki, who's head of singer Miho's fan club, and Wakagi is a mysterious bodyguard from Key's hometown, an old assistant of Dr. Mima who stays hidden in the shadows. Add to this dark mix a sleazy porn photographer, a half-mad, domineering concert choreographer, and a manipulative monk who holds a tiny religious sect that's going to worship Key, whether Key wants it or not, and you get some idea of the complexity of the story that's about to unwind. For 13 episodes, all these episodes mesh nicely together, building a nice mystery about Key's background, her grandfather's work, and Ajo's relationship to all that, plus some minor action scenes as Ajo's robots try to snatch Key for his own experiments. And there are a few flashes of fan service. Will someone please buy Sergei some pants? Then, all that tension building screeches to a grinding stop in episode 14, a movie-length OVA that's mechanically boring hour and a half of anime. It features mostly Wakagi and Takaki sitting on a park bench as Wakagi tells us Key's full story. Even though this explains most of what we'd wanted to know for much of the series, the sit-down session is just dull. It's the lone sour note in this finely tuned production. The final OVA is over an hour and a half long, practically a movie in its own right, and it puts the story firmly back on track and takes us very nicely to a conclusion. By then we're pretty sure generally how that conclusion's going to play out in general, and it's just the details that need to be filled in. But still we find they saved a few twists at the end that we hadn't expected. Oh, and as a warning to hard sci-fi fans, the ending has a little bit of mystic mumbo-jumbo thrown in too. Hiroaki Sato hasn't done a whole lot of anime work, but he created, wrote, and directed Key's engrossing story. He says he originally conceived it as background for a video game that was never produced. The series varies a lot, and the structure starts with a lot of incoherent flashbacks meant to tease us into this mystery of the story, and then sometimes it gets very linear, and it has that one piece of very tedious exposition thrown in. But Key's story is intriguing enough to get us over the occasional lapses in dramatic pacing.
ミマに期待したのはパワーボックスの小型化だけだ。その目的は達成しつつある。考えられるか。 たった一人の将校が100人の PPOR を手足のように操って作戦を遂行するのだ。
The characters are a special challenge here. Key is the star, and she's an enigma. Her true nature is kept deliberately ambiguous throughout most of the story, and her robotic personality is inherently flat and unemotional. That we come to like her despite all that is a real achievement by the creators. Sakura, on the other hand, is really easy to like. She's energetic, sexy, and kind to a fault. You can't help but like her. The story isn't helped much by the artwork. The character designs slide slightly towards the cartoonish side of the spectrum, and most of the sets and backgrounds are generic and unimaginative cityscapes and offices. But just when you're going to dismiss it, Sato shows a flash of wonderfully inventive imagery to complement the story. Studio Pierrot's animation is really disappointing. I suppose that to complete such a long OVA series, they found it necessary to skimp on the budget from OVA to OVA. But it shows a lot of stills, pans, dissolves, and an abundance of talking heads. Luckily, the story is good enough to rise above those limitations. The music and the entire sound design in general is really inventive. Most obviously, since one of the characters is an idol singer, we'll get several vocal performances in the story. But more interesting is the way the mechanical clockwork sounds of gears and springs and ticking mechanisms are woven into the background and even into the music score to complement the theme of Key's robotic nature. Overall, I give Key the Metal Idol 3.5 stars. It's mostly thoughtful, intriguing storytelling with a smear of unique visuals. You can always skip that one tedious episode. The English dub is provided by Ocean Studios. Unlike the Japanese soundtrack, they did some audio processing to give Key's voice an artificial electronic timbre. I suppose they meant well. Aside from that, the English dub isn't so bad. They even re-recorded some of the song lyrics in English. I slightly prefer the original Japanese version for the dialogue, but I really prefer the songs in the original Japanese language. Viz has collected all 15 episodes, which is close to 15 hours of video, onto 3 DVDs. They also threw some interviews in text with director Hiroaki Sato that appeared in Viz's old U.S. magazine.
Thanks for listening.
And that's it for the anime today. If you've been wondering about that volcano in the background, that's actually just an overexposure of the upper canyon wall that's in direct sunlight. If I speed up the video, you can see the shadow creeping up. Although that yellow rhyolite is a volcanic rock, it's my cheap camera that created the exotic landscape.